Good morning, students. You can have the best goals, you can have the best analysis, community analysis. You can have the best strategies in the world. And if you don't have any people to carry them out, you have nothing. So one of the biggest frustrations that new community organizers share with me, people who are not only community organizers, but people who are trying to make community development happen, people who are engaged in advocacy or activism, is look, I tried to get people to come and nobody came, or only a few people came, or only a few people helped. So we really need to talk about the art, the skill of recruitment. How do you inspire and motivate participation? Well, let's start with what you don't do. When people say to me, I tried to get other people to come, but they didn't, I usually ask them, why? What did you do? How did you try to get people to come? And they say, I sent out emails and I made an announcement. I did a Facebook invitation. Well, that's very effective for what we call mobilization. Mobilization means getting people to do what is pretty easy for them to do and what they would really like to do, and they know they would really like to do it. So, if I invite people to come hear a concert by a musician they love, pretty easy to do. They know they want to do it. Quite likely to come. That's called mobilizing. Organizing, engaging people in working together for systemic change is not easy. It's quite high cost. And I believe that God has placed in each of us, deep inside, a little flame, a little part of us that wants what He wants for us as individuals, as communities, as societies. So we do have a desire in us as part of being made in the image of God for justice. We have a desire for abundant life for us all. We have a little flame. But that flame runs right into human sin in all its forms. And so there is tremendous resistance, even though there is tremendous desire. Organizing means fanning that flame until it's large enough to overcome all that stands between it and what God would will. So that's a process that means really understanding the barriers that people are facing, really understanding the cost, not trying to pretend that there is no cost. Modern evangelism, modern discipleship often tries to engage people by pretending that it's easy. Jesus did say, my yoke is easy and my burden light once, but He also talked about the cost of discipleship many times in ways that often feel to us counterproductive. Like, you're turning that person away, Jesus, why are you doing that? No, you don't try to lower the cost. You try to strengthen the willingness to pay the cost, whatever it is. So we do have to, in motivating participation, we do have to really understand what the costs are, what are the barriers that people are up against. But secondly, Jesus never asked generally for volunteers. He never said, you all, anybody want to help? He never did that. He chose His disciples. He called them by name. The name of the flame in each of us is a little different. Mary, I often think of her in Spanish, Maria, or Andreas, or Pedro, Andrew, Peter. They were not all the same, and He didn't organize them in the same way. So to really organize somebody means to understand the shape and name of their flame and to fan that. So how do you do that? You've read in the text that I gave you that the most important building block of organizing is relationship, and is relationship formed in the process of initially what they call one-on-ones. One-on-ones. One-on-ones then lead to small group meetings. I think one-on-one is a little bit culturally limited. One-on-one is the way that some cultures have up-close, personal, deep conversations. Other cultures, particularly across gender, a man talking to a woman, for example, don't feel comfortable at all with that happening in a private, one-on-one context. Many cultures have kitchen tables as places where deeper conversations happen while the children are running around in circles. So this could be a kitchen table conversation, or it could be a one-on-one, but it is always a strategic conversation that fans the flame. And a strategic conversation is a conversation, first of all, with an agenda. And you will read in Robert Linthicum's text that he talks about not having an agenda. I think that's a little bit, I wouldn't say untrue, but not completely true. That's a better way to put it. You do have an agenda. And in fact, hiding your agenda is counterproductive in the end. But it is true that your agenda is not a manipulative agenda. You're not trying to make that person do something that you want them to do. You're trying to help that person, enable that person to do what they're called to do. So in that sense, it is deeply listening. It is a deep experience of enabling the other person to, or supporting the other person in setting the agenda for their lives. But it is also, when it is faith-rooted, a recognition that God has a call to each of us and to all of us, and that our souls will never be fully at peace and satisfied until we live out the fullness of that call. So you really are there for your mutual blessing, the blessing of that person, the blessing of you, the blessing of the whole community. So you need to learn to listen to where the connection, the authentic connection is between what motivates that person most deeply and engaging in the transformation of their community. So you need to learn the skill of that kind of listening. The problem that most of us have is that we don't even know our own deep motivations. We don't know the name of our own flames. There's nothing in our society that teaches us that. So I want to introduce you to some questions that we use to help people get to the unique nature of their own calling, of their own motivation. So the question of, what is your name? When and where did you first realize that there was a connection between faith and justice? The truth is that we will die for our faith. The truth is that people are tremendously and profoundly motivated by our faith. But you really have to see the connection between our faith and justice in the world. There's often a particular scripture, a particular experience, encounter with God that people have, that's where they first realize that. And to bring them back to that is recovering your first love. So let's listen for where that is. Secondly, in traditional community organizing, they say, what is the self-interest of the person who you're having that strategic conversation with, the one-on-one with? You have to listen for the self-interest. Well, self-interest does motivate people, and you should listen for it, definitely. But sometimes it's not the person's own pain that motivates them most. Sometimes I will do more out of deep connection with the pain of another person than I will for myself. And that's particularly true for many women. So, listen to whose pain moves the person most, whose pain moves you most. Ask yourself that question. But we're not just moved by pain, brothers and sisters, we're moved by joy. If something gives you joy, will you do it? Well, quite often you will, and you won't have to be pushed to do it. So there's a wonderful story that's told in Uganda and in Eritrea, that when women are pregnant, they go out into the wilderness and they find, with the other women, they find a singing tree, where sitting under the tree, they will discern the song of their baby, which is related to the baby's name. Then when the woman is giving birth, the other women sing the song so that that woman will give birth well. When the baby's born, you teach the baby his or her song. At moments of triumph and moments of trial through their lives, they gather strength from singing their song. When they die, the whole community sings their song as they are dying. If they commit a crime, They put the person in the center, and the community sings their song to remind them who they are. All your life, what activities, what contexts have made your heart sing? It's very important to know that, because by knowing that, you know what will give you joy. And so you can see the authentic connection between what gives you joy and the work that you are called to do. And then you'll understand what the work is that you are called to do. Then the next question is, of all the things that give you joy, where is the connection? And this comes from Dr. Frederick Buechner, who's an author and a pastor. And he defines calling as the connection between the world's deep hunger and your own deep gladness. So you have to say, where is that intersection point between that which makes my heart sing and that which makes a difference in the world? One more question here. We're not just individuals, we're also collective selves. You can see that in Scripture, where a man and his household in Acts become Christians at the same time. We are communal selves as well as individual selves. And so we are motivated, in many cases, by the legacy that we've been given. Did someone pass on a torch to you? Did someone that you love, who was an elder, a pastor, a parent, not finish the task and give you the task to complete? That's deeply motivating. Many of us carry those legacies. Sometimes we carry a negative legacy. I will never do what has been done to me. And sometimes if we have our own children or grandchildren, we are about passing on a legacy. There was a man in China in the recent pro-democracy demonstrations who was interviewed by a journalist, and the journalist said to him, "Why are you risking your life?" And he said, "I want my 9-year-old to know that I was here." So that whole process, these are all ways to get deeper into understanding your own motivation. So an exercise that, again, I would really recommend that you do is to ask yourself these questions, to encourage that the other person ask themselves these questions, and then to share your answers, listening together, for what would be the authentic connection between what motivates you, the name and the shape of your flame, and what it would mean to work for justice in your context. Thank you.